You know what's interesting? All of these people that are trying to be something. And they're trying to be something based on what other people are trying to tell them to be. And you see this sort of thing happen immensely, in particularly within the world of what's the word I'm looking for? Within the world of manliness and how to be a man, right? There's all these people telling you how to be a man, how to be this, how to be that. And so you have these groups of people being like, oh, so I gotta do this to be a man. So what do? They start to go to the gym to work out, to try to get bigger so they can feel stronger and feel more like a man. Or they go learn a martial arts like jiu-jitsu or something because they figure, well, I'm not a man unless I can do some damage or protect somebody or something like that. Or they think they're a man by getting all of these women or something like that. And so there's this entire culture of stop, Krishna. Or there's this entire culture of people that essentially go around and make their entire life about trying to get women, right? They're like, oh, we gotta try to stick our wang in, and the more women I stick my wang in, the more of a man I'll be. And then you got the people who try to be what's considered like macho man, right? The macho man, like all right, I gotta be tough, I gotta be scary, I gotta be somebody you don't want to fuck with. And so what ultimately ends up happening is you have all of these people that are trying to be anything but themselves. And that's what it really comes down to. They're like, all right, well, maybe I need to be tougher. I need to be scarier. I need to be something other than myself, because myself, who the fuck wants to see that, right? Myself is weird. Maybe I pick my nose. Maybe I don't look the hottest. Maybe I'm just a skinny guy. Maybe I just have a fat body. Maybe I'm not that smart. Maybe I'm not that intelligent. Whatever the case is. But the point is that you have this society where people are trying so hard to be something but themselves. And in essence, it's really like a big theatrical play, right? So think about it. In a theatrical play or a movie, you have your actors. And the actors, they all play a role, right? So I'm sure you guys have seen movies before. Now, the question becomes, is the actor the role? And of course you're gonna be like, well, of course not. He's just playing a role, all right? And so why would you think that you playing a role would be you? Serious question. You know, you dress a certain way, you talk a certain way, you project a certain lifestyle with the things you collect, and at the end of the day, you're just playing a role. All right, but if you take all those things away, at the end of the day, you're still just this actor. And so I suppose my question to you is, the person who is obsessed with trying to be somebody they're not, trying to create somebody that doesn't even need to be created because you already are who you are. And so, with that being all said, I suppose the ultimate question is, why? Why are you wasting your time trying to be somebody when you already are somebody? You are yourself as you are. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, try to improve yourself in various ways, but what I'm saying is that in doing so, you shouldn't lose the authenticity of who you are at the end of the day, which is this dynamically evolving, let's just call it thing, for simplicity's sake for this video. But the point is that there's a lot of fakeness going around everywhere. And, I was immensely a part of that as well, right? Like, I'm not like sitting on some like holier than thou sort of thing, like, oh, I've never gone down that path. No, I definitely have gone down that path, right? Because you get to a point, especially when you're like a younger kid, and as a younger kid, you're trying to figure out a whole lot of crap. You're like, well, how do I fit in? Like what am I? Who am I? And so you start seeing like all this propaganda on TV and all these ads and all this stuff, and you see people dressing a certain way, and you see people talking a certain way, and so you start dressing a certain way, and you start talking a certain way, and you start believing things a certain way, and you start wanting certain things based on all this advertising and propaganda that's basically saying you will not be happy unless you are like this guy, right? Or like this girl. And so you start to end up to live your life with the goal to be this image. Okay? You suddenly you have this image in your head, like, man, if only I had this giant house. If only I had this boob job. If only I had this sweet car, this super hot wife. If only I had all this stuff, then I will finally be fulfilled, because now I will finally be the person that I want to be, and all of this great stuff. But at the end of the day, you're still not fulfilled. You're still not happy. You're still chasing something. And if you are remotely intelligent, because you've done this process over and over and over and over and over again, you realize that it's this constant cycle of unsatisfaction, where you achieve something, you achieve some goal, you think you're closer to this person or image that you desire to be. So, for example, let's just say this, like, aha, you finally got the girl that you've always wanted, or aha, you finally got the car you've always wanted, and you get this emotional, positive feedback, right? I call it a positive emotional response. And just like a crackhead that has smoked some crack, and they are momentarily fucking feeling great. They're like, hell yeah, I just smoked some crack, I'm feeling good. And then boom, they start to go back down to their baseline level. And so as this crap ultimately happens, what do? You ultimately look for your next high, metaphorically speaking, right? You look for your next thing to get back to that, to get back to that positive emotional state. But then you realize it happens again, because you get the thing again, right? Like, let's say, aha, you finally reached your goal of building 40 pounds of muscle, or aha, you finally reached your goal of becoming some super great artist or pro gamer or some bullshit like that. And so the same thing happens. You feel great momentarily, and suddenly it goes back down to your baseline level. And just like some crackhead fiending for more crack, what do? They start to look for more crack. But in this case, you look for another thing to stimulate you emotionally again, because you're constantly looking for this thing to satisfy you and keep you completely satisfied, but you never end up staying completely satisfied. And so essentially, by looking to be somebody else other than who you are, you end up in this scenario where you can never be happy. You can never be fully satisfied, I should say. And it's because the satisfaction, I don't know if I said that right, but the fulfillment that you get from achieving the thing is always temporary. It's always transient. It's never everlasting. And so it becomes a problem of you're looking to become somebody that is not, it's a state. Okay, it's a state. It's not something that lasts. And because of this, you're constantly looking for this thing that lasts. And people do it in all sorts of ways, right? They're like, especially in relationships, right? They're like, man, I'm like, my relationship could be so much better, and I am not perfectly happy with it. So what do? They like break up, they get a divorce, and they get a new relationship, and everything's great because the relationship's novel. And then once the novelty wears off and you start realizing all these things you don't like about the person, suddenly, boom, the same thing happens again, and you go back into your little cycle of looking for the next best thing that will bring you that positive emotional response again. And so as you can see, you're in this constant cycle of unsatisfaction. And because of which, my entire point is that this is ultimately due, I mean, it's due to a few things, but it's ultimately due to believing that you need to be somebody or have something other than what you already are and what you already have. And so if you can ultimately realize that what you are and what you already have is everlasting and does not change, then you will realize you already have everything you've ever needed, because you're constantly looking for something that doesn't change. You're constantly looking for like the what's the word I'm looking for? You hear it all the time, like movies and stuff, like the everlasting love that is eternal. You're literally looking for something eternal, okay? That has no beginning or end. And you can't find something eternal in things that are transient. Transient meaning they change, right? Like they change. I mean, I could like elaborate on all this, but I'm trying to keep this relatively short. And so hopefully I've touched on a couple important points here. But yeah, moral of the story is, don't look for something everlasting, something that will not change, in things that change, right? Like your body's constantly changing. The sky is constantly changing. The sun is constantly changing. Your car is constantly changing. Your computer's constantly changing. The grass is constantly changing. Everything is constantly changing. And it's because all these things have qualities and states to them. And so you ultimately need to look for something that is qualityless and stateless, and therefore is incapable of changing, because anything that changes is ultimately unsatisfactory, and you're looking for something that will keep you fulfilled and satisfied for eternity.